Multiple rounds of heavy snow are in the upcoming forecast, including one that could impact the south into next week. This comes as an Arctic blast is set to bring well below average temperatures to much of the U.S. This video has a full breakdown of the active weather pattern ahead and all of the cold air on the way. Thank you very much for tuning into this weather update video. I'm going to be doing things in order from this overview, then we'll talk about some of the snow signals, then we'll talk about the Arctic blast potential and the latest details on what your temperatures could be as we go down the line. Make sure you're using the timestamps in the description of this video as well as along the timeline below the video to skip ahead to the parts that you want to see. But here you go, starting off with the overview with some blended guidance showing areas of rain and snow as we go into the pattern ahead. And you can clearly see where our Arctic blast is going to be driven in by a front. Here's your front right here, Arctic blast pushing in behind it, even with some snow back there into the Rockies by as early as our late Friday, pushing into our Saturday morning. We're dry and cold on up there into the north central U.S., but we're going to be watching rain in the warmer sector that's continuing down here in the southeast U.S., and then tailing that front, we'll also have to watch some chances of snow pushing out of parts of the Ohio Valley and eventually into the northeast by the time we go out of Saturday into Sunday. One of those chances is actually going to be with an additional low pressure that develops on the tail end of our front. And I think as we go through Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening into Monday is going to be when that really blows up. This is going to be snow signal 1 that I break down in more detail here in just a minute, bringing a heavy stripe of snow that could even accumulate to 6+ inches in some parts of the Delmarva shores, pushing on up here into southern New England. And even on up there into interior New England zones, at least especially as you bank on up there against the eastern sides of the Appalachian Mountains. That's not the only snow signal we've got to watch, though. While most of the country is going to remain dry and cold with that Arctic blast into next week, we're going to get just enough energy coming back up into that cold air down here towards the south central and the southeastern U.S. that right along, believe it or not, the Gulf Coast states, including possibly the Gulf Coast itself and then over to the southeast coast, we could be watching some snow, even including some of the southern parts, even towards the I-10 corridor regions of these states. Really crazy to see, but I'm going to break down this signal as well in more detail here in just a minute, but let's start off with that northeastern signal. All right, here we are. I'm going to start by overviewing this system with the GFS model on its own. This is not ensemble guidance. We're close enough to this storm that we can overview it using this single model here. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that northeast region, and here we go, playing things out. Not too busy in the northeastern U.S. as we go through Saturday, other than some coastal rain and some interior northeast snow showers. You can see parts of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire maybe getting in on some of those more moderate to heavy inland snow bands. But overall, it's not going to be until we get into Sunday when we see that NorEaster-like system coming up the backside of that cold front. And you can see it right here starting to initiate back there, pushing out of northern Virginia into parts of Maryland, eastern West Virginia, and then on up here into parts of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, as well as southern New York. It looks like things are going to pick up as we go out of the early morning to the mid-morning time frame, and then as we go into the afternoon, especially right here along the I-95 corridor in these regions. This could be briefly moderate to heavy snow. It's going to be a quick flash, sure, but it will be heavy as it moves through, and it could pick up even more with some of our heaviest totals expected in this general zone somewhere right in here as you come through parts of possibly even Long Island and New York City there in New York, coming on up here through a lot of Connecticut, Rhode Island, into parts of Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire. And then we could even briefly see some heavy snow out of Sunday evening and into early Monday as this wraps up moving through parts of Maine. With that overview now out of the way, I want to give you a look at the projected, not the final forecast necessarily, but the projected snowfall totals here as we're getting a lot closer to this event, and we now have access to these totals that are being projected by the National Digital Forecast Database through Sunday and Monday. Here we go, giving you a look at the overall amount that you can expect coming out of West Virginia into parts of Northern Virginia and Maryland. Unless you're up in the higher elevations, a lot of spots around 3 to 6 inches, but you could definitely overachieve in a few spots, especially as you go up into rain. From there, that's where our snow swath is likely to pick up through eastern PA, north central parts of New Jersey, into possibly Long Island, and then over here into the southern New England zones, including Connecticut, western Massachusetts, east central New York, into parts of Vermont as well. This is where that most likely swath in these purples is for some spots to get upwards of 6 to 8, maybe even towards 10 to 12 inches of snowfall. Not going to be for everyone, especially with that 10 to 12, but a lot of spots at least a half a foot of snow, a pretty decent event here. Even the coast, the eastern parts of Long Island, eastern Connecticut, Rhode Island, and parts of Massachusetts anticipating anywhere from around 4 to 8 inches of snow. Same goes up here into a lot of Vermont, New Hampshire, as well as into Maine. So a pretty decent event if these National Digital Forecast database numbers, which are usually pretty, on the conservative side, if they do indeed verify. With this northeast snowstorm discussion now in the books, I want to shift it back way to the south where our next winter storm is going to be likely. And yes, that even includes parts of the Gulf Coast region where we could see snow. starting Monday, and then as we especially go into Tuesday and the early part of Wednesday of next week. That will also include the southeastern coast of the U.S. with time as this pushes off to the east. Let's go ahead and break that down, or at least overview what could occur out of this using the GFS model. This is not a final forecast, but I want to show you that overall we're going to get just enough moisture to get a winter storm likely going into parts of eastern Texas and then over into Louisiana, with something anywhere from ice to sleet to snow, maybe even as far south as Houston over to New Orleans, beginning late Monday into Monday night into Tuesday. The specifics on how much snow you see, how much sleet you may see, how much ice may be involved, those are specifics that are not yet nailed down, but this general corridor through eastern Texas and over into parts of Louisiana, this is where it looks like some wintry weather is likely to kick up into Monday night, especially in those earliest stages. From here, we begin to see things shift east, and this is such a crazy looking signal with as much dry air as pushing in from the north with our very cold 30, 40 degree below average temperatures moving in from the north. All of our moisture is going to be likely compressed very close to the Gulf Coast. We could see a little bit more of a shift with some of the snow to the north for sure, or that snow and ice line could go even further south and out here into the Gulf, pushing your heavier snow totals more towards Baton Rouge or New Orleans. That's what's uncertain right now, but it certainly looks, again, like eastern Texas now pushing into Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama into our Tuesday afternoon, looking at snow, ice, or sleet for you guys. And then from there, we continue to see this likely signal pushing east. We're anywhere from Alabama to North Florida to Georgia to the Carolinas. We're watching you for a snow signal as well, and this could definitely be impactful with possibly even some ice getting in the mix somewhere wherever we see that transition from rain to snow. Again, the specifics on this are not known just yet. Who's going to see how much of what? But we definitely see that winter weather signal, and it is picking up. But as quickly as it picks up through the day Tuesday and into Tuesday evening, which is what we're looking at here, by the time we go into the nighttime Tuesday night, overnight, and into Wednesday, it looks like as of now, most models have this system wrapping up, maybe with some brief snow for parts of the mid-Atlantic shores, but overall the Carolina shores, the Virginia shores finish with some snow into Wednesday morning, and then we're done. Look how dry the entire U.S. would be by that point. Pretty much nothing going on with that dry, cold air all across the U.S. Again, that was just your GFS model alone, showing where we might be seeing what and at what times. We're not focusing on the specific snow or ice totals of anything just yet, but what could help with that a little bit is this probability map, blending 20 plus outputs here with your GFS ensembles. This is like multiple models coming into one mean, showing a percentage of at least an inch of snow in a given period of time. And by the time we go here through Tuesday and into Wednesday, let's start here with the south central U.S., mainly Texas and Louisiana. Look at this, coming out of southeastern Texas, it looks like mostly on the south side of Dallas with this general ensemble mean signal. And then on over here into parts of Louisiana, including places like Baton Rouge. Then on that borderline, at least in New Orleans, and especially to your north or around there, of at least a 50+% chance, even down here towards parts of the Gulf Coast of Louisiana in some cases, for an inch or more of snowfall. That's insane to see, but this blended guidance does a good job of showing where that's likely going to be. And then we continue to see at least 30 to 50% chances continuing all the way through Alabama, Georgia, and up into the Carolina coast, where other guidance is showing a better chance as well for some heavier snow to erupt in some of these zones. Again, it really looks like this is going to be more of a coastal track instead of an inland track with this system, and that literally could mean that we see snowflakes even in the Florida Panhandle over to Jacksonville out of this event, even if it doesn't accumulate to a whole lot. I'll provide more future updates on snow and ice totals that could specifically come out of that storm for the south and southeast, but for now, let's talk about that Arctic front and the latest forecasted high temperatures day by day. This is not your feels like temperatures, this is just the actual temperature each afternoon that's projected by the National Digital Forecast Database through the next several days. Starting here in the near term, Saturday afternoon, if you're east of this line, you're still milder than average for this time of the year. In fact, warmer by 5, 10, 15 degrees above average for a lot of the east with southerly flow building up. 60s closer to the Gulf Coast, turning to 40s and 50s as you go on up towards the mid-Atlantic and parts of even the New England shores, where by Sunday, remember, we're going to be seeing an all-out nor'easter pushing in with that Arctic front into these zones. The cold Saturday afternoon, this is just a fraction of what's going to be coming in, but already teens and 20s across a lot of parts of the Rockies and moving on up here into the north central plains. And it just gets even colder by Sunday afternoon. Remember, these are the peak temperatures in the day. It's much colder than this even in the morning, and when you factor in the wind chills as well as you go throughout the day. Here's your huge jet stream dip into our Sunday. Anywhere north of this line, not even expected to crack freezing in many cases into the afternoon hours. The peak heating of the day where you'd normally expect at least 40s in some of these spots down even in the south central U.S. Nope, only around 30 to 35 degrees for your peak temperature of the day in Oklahoma and Arkansas on Sunday. We've got 20s back here in the interior Northeast, teens and 20s in the Ohio Valley. And then look at this zone right here. Some of these are going to be near record cold highs, as you can see indicated by those circles in northern Wisconsin. -5, even as low as -15 in some extreme cases here into North Dakota, Minnesota, and northern Wisconsin and the upper peninsula of Michigan. Bone-chilling cold. And again, these are your afternoon highs. I keep saying that, but I can't stress that enough. This does not factor in the wind. This is not your morning temperature. Real cold. Definitely want to be protecting people, pipes, and pets, checking on your neighbors with this kind of bone-chilling cold going on across the country. Anywhere from Idaho all the way down to the Carolinas, peak temperatures into our Monday afternoon only in the 20s and 30s. And a lot of these temperatures are going to be record cold down here, down the spine of the Appalachians and down even into parts of Georgia. Teens, 20s, and 30s are very uncommon for high temperatures, even with some of the bigger cold blasts that we get in the southeast in the winter. So no surprise to see those record cold highs forecasted. But again, this is even more dangerous with the cold back on up here into the north central U.S. even so. Single digits and then single digits on the other side of 0 for forecast highs Monday, anywhere from parts of the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes, and then back into the north central zones. Tuesday is actually going to be a little bit colder, a little bit further east, so into parts of the interior Northeast, this could actually be your coldest day with many spots struggling to get above 0 to 5 in the afternoon back there. We're starting to recover a little bit further south, but we've still got a lot of 30s trying to come back on up here from the Gulf Coast as we go through Tuesday. This is as we're getting that winter storm down here, so just as we try to see things recover, that's just going to help in reinforcing our cold air. But eventually, by Wednesday, Thursday, you can see some recovery, and things are going to start to turn into the warming trend, I think, by the time we get to the end of next week. Although still, Thursday afternoon, teens and 20s for highs in the north central part of the U.S. It's a crazy stretch all the way to get to Thursday next week, though, with multiple snows to watch. Here's the recap of everything I just broke down in this video, and of course the first thing was just that we have that active pattern that's going to help to usher in our Arctic blast. There's 2 snow signals that have continued to uptrend for many areas. The first one, that one that I broke down for the first part of the breakdown areas of this video when I talked about the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, and Southern New England zones that could pick up heavy snow, some spots trying to push towards even a half a foot to a foot. We could do the same for somewhere along the Gulf Coast and into the southeast U.S. next week, as that dangerous cold is still in the forecast. I'll keep you updated on all of it, whether it's with community post updates, maybe a YouTube short or two, more of these long-form videos as well as we get closer, especially to that southern event. Make sure to subscribe down below so you never miss my consistent, accurate, and educational forecasts. That's all I have to say, though, other than saying check out the links in the description of this video. I'll see you right here next time at
One Nation Web.